What really inspired you to write the book? I mean, we've heard about your journey and so forth, but what was that trigger moment?
One was a personal one. You know, my son was very unwell, and this was in 2014. He met with an accident, and I was in Mumbai, he was in Delhi, and I was talking about this in the morning as well, and I had to rush in because he was in the ICU. He'd lost a lot of blood, and you know, I was going through this whole upheaval in my mind about, am I back, you know, doing selfishly what I like to do, and am I not again fulfilling my responsibilities? And it was the longest 1.5-hour flight that I've ever been on when I went back to see him. He became fine, but those moments of stress and desperation of what am I supposed to do kind of just made me put pen to paper. So that was the biggest trigger. But then there were, you know, a lot of other women who've been coming back to me and talking about similar issues kind of fueled that up as well.
Okay. You start your book talking about clarity and choices. So how did these impact your decisions?
So, you know, I talked about one decision, and I would actually now share stories about other women that I have met. But I think, you know, clarity is about having a goalpost, and so you need to have a milestone about where you're headed. Again, we all know it intellectually, but how many of us really persist towards that milepost? You know, if you don't know where you want to go, anything will take you there. So I think defining that goalpost is extremely important. It could be in your personal life, it could be in your professional life, and then finally that drives the choices that you want to make. For me, you know, deciding what I wanted to pursue in terms of further studies was important. It was a very important clarity of thought that I had to persist with. And once I decided I wanted to do it, then, you know, whether my parents resisted it or whether, you know, my, you know, extended family didn't think that was the right choice, I persisted with a satisfaction that if it works, the credit is mine. If it doesn't work, the hardship is mine.
You've worked across the globe, and you know, you've lived in London, New York, India. What differences have you seen impacting women or the working environment or the homemakers?
You know, I think every geography, there are certain things which are very similar. You know, the whole the guilt factor about, you know, how do I balance my children and my work always persists, especially for a working woman. And I think, you know, very often I've seen in terms of the differences, it's the socio-cultural factors at play. So what may be acceptable in one country, and just as an example of maternity leave, you know, for example, in the US, you have a maternity leave of 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know whether this changed, Judith, but my time, that's what it used to be. Whereas if you look at this part of the world, or say Asia, it'd probably be 6 months. And if you look at Europe, it'd probably be a couple of years. Now, some of it is driven depending on, you know, demographic dividends that different countries are looking for. But a lot of it is driven also by socio-cultural variables and how people perceive childcare. So I think there are socio-cultural factors at play. Going back to India, where I am currently, where I said it's a very patriarchal society, there's a much stronger view about, you know, how women need to be at home. And so when a man or a woman comes back, I mean, I don't cook, I'm not a great cook, but the general expectation is that, you know, she's kind of taking care of the homely chores, and very willingly, by the way. And if, you know, there were times when if my husband was washing dishes, and even if my mother was at home, she would find it a bit odd. So I think those expectations are slightly different across geographies.
Great. So